Good evening. The City Council and Housing Authority meeting will come to order. Pursuant to the July 17, 2021 order from the County of Los Angeles Department of Public Health and the January 5th, 2022 order from the State of California Department of Public Health, face masks must be worn by all persons regardless of vaccination status while in the council chambers. There will be a designated area in the lobby to accommodate members of the public who do not wish to be seated in the council chambers and to desire to remain masked and socially distanced regardless of the vaccination status. Temporary accommodation due to COVID. As a standing accommodation to ensure participation of those with sensitive and/or other risk, the city will offer a nearby alternate location where individuals who desire to participate in the council meeting and would desire to wear masks maintain at 6 feet of social distance and ensure that those around them are also similarly protected regardless of their vaccination status, who may be watching the meeting. Such individuals will be allowed to remain in the area only if they comply with these requirements. To participate in oral communications, such individuals will be called, can proceed to the public speaking podium and address the City Council, and are able to return to the fully masked, socially distanced location with minimal exposure to any unmasked individuals. Please stand. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This month, we're recognizing Black History Month. Whereas Black History Month is an annual celebration of achievements by the Black Americans and a time for recognizing the central role of the African American in U.S. history. And whereas the observance efforts a special opportunity to become more knowledgeable about Black heritage and to honor the many Black leaders who have contributed to the progress of our community, state, and our nation. Whereas such knowledge can strengthen the understanding by all citizens regardless of the issues of human rights, the great strides that have been made in the crusade to eliminate barriers to equity for minority groups and the continuing struggle against racial discrimination and poverty. And whereas February has been designated National Black History Month, and the City of San Dimas calls upon all residents as well as others to observe the commemorative Black History Month and to reiterate themselves creating a world where the rights and contributions of all would be respected, acknowledged, and celebrated. Therefore, I, Mayor Emmett Badar, Mayor Pro Tem Eric Weber, Councilmember Dennis Bertone, John Ebner, and Ryan Viana, do hereby proclaim February 2022 as National Black History Month 2022. In witness thereof, I, Emmett Badar, hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of San Dimas to be affixed this 8th day of February 2022. Oral communications. Members of the audience are invited to address the City Council on any item on this agenda or not on this agenda. Public comments will not be taken during each individual item except for public hearing items. Comments on the public hearing items will be heard when that item is scheduled for discussion. Under the provisions of the Brown Act, the legislative body is prohibited from engaging in discussion on any item not appearing on this posted agenda. However, your concerns may be referred to a staff or set for discussion at a later date. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes. Madam Clerk, do we have any speaker cards?
Mayor, there have been no speaker cards turned in.
I'm seeing people waving speaker cards. You know, could a staff member get them or something?
Evelyn is here to speak on the Charter Oak Mobile Home Estates.
I basically have a question for the council. We're on the agenda during the portion where the city is giving the update and feedback from our last meeting. Will we have an opportunity to speak then? Or do we have to speak during...
Speak now. Speak now. Go ahead.
Okay, so if anybody from Charter Oak wants to speak, you've got to fill out a card.
You don't have to fill out a card, but it helps with the record keeping.
Well, what we would like to do is when you're giving the update, we would like to rebut some of the things that are being done and said.
There's a second oral communication at the end of the meeting, and that's when you'll be able to speak up for that. So this is merely a report that's coming back from the staff to us.
But we have submitted twice to be on the agenda so that we could have rebuttal time, and both times were not put on the agenda, and we want to know why. We submitted a 10-page report 2 weeks ago. We submitted a 3-page report a week ago, and yet we're still not on the agenda as an agenda item.
Chris, you want to explain?
Well, you could allow them to speak when we do our San Dimas Housing Authority.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good time to allow them to speak.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
That's not necessarily dealing with the mobile home park, but that's a time that we can put it into the agenda.
Well, based on Chris's report, most of it is about the mobile home park.
So can we just clarify what the procedure is going to be so everybody knows?
Go ahead, Chris, go ahead and explain it.
So at the last meeting, council's direction was per its policy where 2 council members requested that this item be agendized. The discussion centered around a discussion as to how we selected this current property manager and then potential direction from the council as to what next steps you would like to see. And so I reminded the council that we had a very short window to be able to respond, that we were not going to be able to respond to the plethora of issues. But as you could see in the staff report, it refers to what we believe the next steps should be to make sure we get resolution and evaluation of what's happening.
All right.
And just to the question of when, so the question is when can they speak? Should they speak now? Should they wait till after that? To the second oral communications, which takes place?
No, I think we're going to let them, John, I'm sorry.
Or should we let them speak after the staff report?
After the staff report, I think it might be the best way to go.
I agree with you, Mayor.
Yes.
I believe after the staff report. So does everyone understand, after the staff report on the housing, or on the mobile home park, okay, then we will start with any questions you have. You don't have to have a card, but we would request that you give your name and address, but that's totally up to you. Does everybody understand? All right, thank you.
You say how far along with your agenda before you're going to get to that part? How long is it going to be? You're not saying anything, it's just wait. How long do you think before you're going to get the charter over?
That's really hard for me to answer. It depends on the way the agenda comes. I don't see you falling asleep here. So I think we're going to get to it pretty quickly.
But some of us got problems with the back of the neck, can't be sitting here and I need chairs for that.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move that we take this item out of order after the consent calendar and that the public comment section also follow the same rules as the other oral communication periods with speakers limited to 3 minutes when we discuss this item.
All right, we understand, sir?
Not really, but
Okay, we're going to get to you real quick.
We're going to bump it up on the agenda, sir, if everybody's okay with that from council.
That's fine. Completely agree.
Okay.
Okay. Consent decree. The consent calendar?
Mr. Mayor,
No,
oral
we only
communication.
had the one lady's already had it. Yeah, anybody can speak right now, or you can wait till the agenda item comes up.
But there may be, okay, so oral communications, you can speak on any item that's on or not on the agenda. So there could be people speaking about
My
other
name
things.
is Paul Larson, and I live at 801 West Covina Boulevard there at Charter Oak Mobile Home Park. And I went in this month to pay my rent, and I had a question about my bill, my rent, some of the utilities. Now, I was told, call Weights and Measures if you have a problem from the management. I wouldn't accept that. I was told to get out of the manager's office. I wouldn't go. She called the police on me, came to my house, and the police told me I am no longer allowed to go in the manager's office. Now, I live there. I am a homeowner. And the manager's got the right because I disagree, and I was right. There wasn't discrepancy on my bill. And a couple of the bills from this management company, they've been there 4 months. Already 3 times it's been messed up on my bill, and it's still wrong. Now they want 6 more months? Why did you put them in there? They can't do the job. It's on-the-job training? You know, that's what it is. Give them 6 more months. That's almost a year. That's 10 months, bud. And we still don't know if they're going to get their act together. So you better start looking at what I was charged with. I'm telling me I can't go in there anymore. I got it right here. You want to see it. A disturbance. And they didn't even want to listen to me explain anything. It was, you were called disturbance. Here it is. At least you're not in handcuffs. Now, bud, I'm going to be 74 years old. I don't need this shit. Excuse me. Flat out, I don't need it. My aggravation is through the damn roof. Having the police come to my house because I disagreed on a bill and wouldn't leave because they tell me to get out? I'm sorry, guys. If you don't do something, get the hell out of the damn seat. You don't belong.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak at this time?
Hello, I'm Mary Ann Kingsbury. I live at 801 West Covina Boulevard. And I had some personal, I went up to the male or female D manager and asked if I could get a wheelchair, because we used to put them in a storeroom, a wheelchair that people weren't using, commodes, walkers. And I asked her if I could have one back, wheelchair, because I need it for myself. And, excuse me, I don't know anything about a storeroom. And I said, well, we have a storeroom that we put these things in. David, our maintenance, comes up, and she said, you can talk to him. She totally ignores me. And I introduced myself first. Hi, you're the manager. I'm Mary Ann Kingsbury. Nice to meet you. She never, no response. And I'm not a troublemaker. But, you know, I don't want to be ignored. That wasn't right. It was not right. And then I have a hole in where my mailbox was. This is crazy. But somebody moved my mailbox. I got a big hole for where the post was, and somebody moved it over a foot. So I told her, I said, Dee, did you tell somebody to do this? No, I have no idea who did it. I'll get back to you. Well, it went an hour, and I thought, well, I'm going to go up there. And I said, Dee, did you find out who did this? No, but there's David. She passes the buck each time. That's very irritating. You know, she makes you feel, or she has me personally, has made me feel like I'm bothering her. I don't like that. I don't like that. And I'm not the type that'll say, you know, well, she did this, he did that. That's not me. But I didn't like the way she handled it. I really didn't. No respect. So here I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I will remind everyone that we are going to hear this item in just a few minutes. So if you have something to say, you can say what you want right now, or if you have something to say about another subject, feel free to come up now, but we will be hearing this item after we get the staff report.
My name is Hope Palmerton. I live in Space 60, 801 West Covina Boulevard, Charter Oak Mobile Home Estates. And I haven't had a personal problem with the management, but my bill, I've lived there 16 years, and I've never paid over $800 for my rent and utilities. I have care, and I have a medical equipment discount on my utilities. And my bill was $750. I've never paid that much in August, in the hottest months, with 2 window air conditioners going all day long. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, ma'am.
It's not, something's not right.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Victor Boisel. I live at 801 Space 177, and I'm a seller. I just sold my house, and the new manager, Victor, solicited the buyer for doing work on there. That's not even right. And I've asked the lady there, Dee, if I could put a dumpster in front of my house so I can get rid of some of my stuff, and she never responded. But the idea that him soliciting other people is like the other manager here, Elmer, is bad. So it really needs to be addressed right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, we're going to continue with the consent calendar.
Good evening. I just wanted to remind the community that the Recall George Gascon petition is out, so if you're interested, let me know. I may not be heading that campaign, but I do know people who are volunteering, so again, if you want to sign the petition, just let me know.
Thank you. Okay, the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion unless a member of the City Council requests a separate discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to remove item number 3, table that till the next meeting, and requesting a study session, closed session to discuss legal questions for council's consideration and decision making.
Anyone second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
Item 3,
Yes.
move it for the next meeting.
Next meeting with a closed session just before council meeting so we can have that discussion.
All right, any objection? Okay, we'll go on to the consent calendar with the exception of item number 3.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. You know, I think in the interest of everything, we're going to close the council session, and then we're going to reopen or open up the Housing Authority meeting. Okay. So what we're going to do, just so you understand, to not inconvenience anyone else any more than they are right now, we are going to close this council meeting, and then we will reconvene it after the Housing Authority meeting. So that means that you'll be able to hear the staff report, and then you'll be able to comment about it. Okay, right away. You understand? We good? Okay, John, do you have any objections? Not at all. Okay. Okay. Okay.
We're not going anywhere. It's mechanics. We're staying here, and we're just going to change hats.
Regular council meetings in recess. We're going to reopen the San Dimas Housing Authority. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the last meeting, the city council, 2 members of the council requested that we agendize consideration of an item to agendize, but with a request that we provide as much or additional information regarding the Charter Oaks Mobile Home Park and information related to a letter that the council had received the day prior and to which 4 speakers spoke to during the public comment period of the council. And so what we provided before you is a staff response, and I won't walk through all of it, but suffice it to say, when I arrived in January of 2021, very quickly I received residents' concerns about Charter Oaks specifically. I hadn't received anything about Monte Vista, but it was about Charter Oaks, regarding responsiveness of the managers at that time, that there wasn't responsiveness to issues being raised by the residents. One resident in particular had a number of issues. That first was they were interacting with staff, and then they communicated directly to me. And as our practice is, just like the Equestrian Center, we asked that we work through the management operator, the on-site staff and the management operator first. But that very quickly, as you could see from the history, wasn't fruitful in terms of getting resolution to a number of the issues. My engagement with Basir at the time was in February. My first interactions with the management company, and I made it very clear with staff present that we value our mobile home park, we value our residents, and we expect accountability with our management operator in the execution of the operations of that mobile home park. The next interaction I had with Basir was June. Now, under our agreement, we are to be provided a budget for the Charter Oaks and Monte Vista apartments 3 months in advance of the fiscal year. And the purpose of having that budget 3 months in advance is to allow us the time to analyze the revenues and expenditures, discuss the kind of projects that need to be performed, develop a capital improvement program to ensure that capital is being maintained on the Charter Oaks and Monte Vista sites. We received that budget less than a month prior to the start of the fiscal year, and our budget meeting was scheduled approximately 7 days before the start of the fiscal year. At that meeting, we were asking very specific questions about revenue and expense projections. To determine accuracy, we asked that a capital improvement program be developed because we saw none in terms of knowing what needed to be done and where and how much that would cost. And then we had made a request for a number of different documents to allow us to properly audit the operations of what was happening at the mobile home park. To my surprise, 7 days later, when staff followed up as to where are the documents, we received a notice of termination indicating the deteriorating relationship between Basir and staff. Well, having received that letter, I could only take it one way, that they didn't like the questions that I was asking of them, trying to hold them accountable. So I called the partner of Basir to come to my office, and we chatted about what the issues were. And I said, after 16 years, triggering a 30-day termination notice means we have no opportunity to manage that park. I don't have somebody I can step into and manage it in 30 days. And so I said, in the best interest of the city and the best interest of the residents, we need some level of continuity so that we can begin the process of selecting a different management operator. And Basir provided an extra 60 days, which pushed us to the end of September. We reached out to neighboring cities to identify recommendations for other park managers. We had a private mobile home park manager recommendation, and through the city of Laverne, high recommendations for one of their mobile home park operators, Haven Management. We interviewed the 2 candidates that we had that were interested in managing the park. We came to a consensus, all the staff that were there, that included direct staff that oversaw Basir, as well as the community development director and myself. And we all felt confident that the best choice that we had at this time was Haven Management Services, and that's who we recommended to council in September and who council approved executing and assigning an agreement with them. The city council also authorized the hiring of a housing manager, and we're currently in the recruitment for that position. That position was intended to provide additional oversight of the housing function that oversaw the Charter Oaks and Monte Vista properties. Sorry, the computer just went out. And Haven Management took over October 1st. Their original intent was to maintain staffing there, but that was not a very viable option. And so Haven had to step up operations with a very short timeline to be able to provide that continuity between September 30th and October 1st. And so we are in the first 3 to 4 months of the operations with Haven Management. And while there has been issues, and those are issues that we need to address, when we recommend that we have a 6-month report back to the council, it doesn't mean we're going to wait 6 months until we address and look into the issues that we have at the park, just that some formal action or consideration at the council be no further than 6 months, but that staff should be working with Haven Management immediately to identify the issues that have been identified, get more information regarding the issues that were raised by residents and responses from management company, and determine the best course of action to protect the sanctity of the park and to ensure continuous operations from the manager. And so therefore, that's why you see a recommendation that we, one, provide that 6-month report back to council so nothing falls through the crack when it comes to the council, and to provide the direction that a resident committee be established so that residents have a direct line to both the management company and the city in terms of raising issues in a way that can be addressed immediately. Because as we have seen in our previous contracts, Equestrian Center being one, we establish a process to allow some redress at the lowest level so that any and all complaints aren't always complaints that have to come to the city council directly, because there's a lot of different issues that happen that we could address immediately if they're properly addressed, and if they're not addressed, be escalated through the process, and hopefully, if we're doing our jobs well, not have to reach the levels of the city manager or the city council. But if it does, then we'll respond to those issues that are raised and haven't been dealt with at the lower levels. And so with that, I'll turn it back to the council for any direction.
Any questions of Chris?
Just questions, but
Just a minute, sir, please. Thank you.
I would think that 6 months is too long of a period. The charges are too serious, and I'm not saying they're right or wrong, I have no idea, but I think we should get some report back in, I would say, 6 weeks instead of 6 months.
Yeah, I agree with Dennis as well. I understand what you're saying is that, you know, an update no later than 6 months to the council, but just like Dennis said, it's a serious issue with an operator of our park, and I think we take it seriously enough that we want a more regular update, perhaps whether it's even you know, something just on each of our as a part of your city manager update, possibly at meetings. However we want to work that in, but you know, whether if it's something as simple as we've been dealing with Haven Management and things are going well or things are going sour, it just so we have kind of a temperature as to how things are going. That would be my opinion.
Ryan?
So when Chris, what were you envisioning? Has the 6-month period already started, or?
Well, we've already received responses. I did not include them because there was a lot of personally identifiable information provided in those responses, and I don't think that's appropriate in this venue. If I made accusations of an individual, I wouldn't be vetting it in the public eye.
Of course.
We also have to protect the rights and responsibilities of those other parties. And so I understand the acuteness, because this is not, I believe, these aren't issues that just happened. The utility issue is, I mean, that actually happened during this tenure. But some of these issues stem from the past. And I don't know fully how they were vetted over the last 5 years when these issues came to a head. One in particular was a retaining wall that apparently was brought to the attention of on-site managers in 2016, but wasn't brought to the attention of the management company, Basir, for a longer period of time. And when it was provided to the city, it was the summertime that the city became knowledgeable, at least our public works staff. And when we became knowledgeable about that,
Excuse me, ma'am. You'll have plenty of opportunity, I promise you. You'll have plenty of opportunity. Let's let the city manager finish his report. Thank you.
well, I should say, when I became knowledgeable of that issue, I ensured that we approved an allocation of $44,000.
I'm sorry, Chris. I have no idea what you just said. The man in the back is talking over you. So if you just give him a chance, please. Thank you.
So I will clarify. When I became knowledgeable of this issue, which would have been over the summer after our public works force identified it, I immediately authorized the expenditure of $44,000 to be able to fix that retaining wall. And the latest report I received was a delay due to COVID here in January. So I expect that to be resolved. And so I have visited that site. There's an actual site that they're trying to drop another mobile home on that location. Clearly it makes no sense not to fix that retaining wall. And it's not that $44,000 is a lot of money when it comes to fix something that could be a health and safety issue. It's something that needs to get fixed. But the items, if they're not properly planned, which is why you need a 5-year CIP, if we can't properly plan, we're not going to execute that plan effectively. And I've had numerous requests from residents that I've walked through the park that ask, you got to redo the streets, but I provided the example. We can do exactly what the residents want, and we can spend $500,000 redoing the streets. But if in 2 years I have to go trench through the streets to do undergrounds because the undergrounds needed to be improved and replaced and hadn't been done so, or I need to install fiber because we don't have robust internet on our mobile home park, we will be the laughingstock to redo and spend $500,000 of Charter Oak's money to do the streets and then rip them to do something underground. So we have to plan out our capital activities. And that's what we intend to do with the management company.
Thanks, Chris. And I think the work might have started, at least at that space. When I was out there last week, there was a bulldozer, a scooper, and looked like they were starting work. So that's a good thing, because that retaining wall was kind of leaning, and you drop a double wide on the vacant lot there and probably give way. But so appreciate that. And as far as the 6 months or the whatever reporting, could we get some reports a little sooner than that? I mean, I understand, and it's kind of a good idea to have a comprehensive, thorough report that's really well done, analyzed and evaluated at the 6-month period, but it seems like we need a little bit sooner or more frequent updates. You said you had some information that we're not going to talk about right now, but when that can be told to us in a form that you'd like to report it in, pretty soon, then that might be a good idea.
Yeah, I don't want to give the false impression that we're going to wait 6 months before dealing with the issue. So no, we can provide more frequent updates to the council regarding this. I think what's more prudent, because I think the direction at the last meeting seemingly appeared to be that the council may consider referring this to the senior commission to address the issues. I think the more proper venue is here at the council. And so staff should be working directly with the management company, identifying the issues that have been laid out in now 2 letters that the council has received, and asking the management company to, 1, respond, and 2, for the city to actually vet those responses. But I think I'm more concerned about the long-term capital improvement and customer service issues that we need to deal with, because I've spoken with the on-site managers. Clearly, I'm not a tenant. I'm not a homeowner there, and so my interactions are different when I come on site as a city manager than it would be somebody living there. But I've walked through the park and I've talked to residents, and you can clearly tell that this is a community, and that the community, there's concerns that will rise up, and you have to have a robust process internally to address those concerns quickly, and not let them be either unaddressed or fester and become larger issues before people then start to rise up and tell you this is not being dealt with. And so I want to make sure that when we work with our managers that we establish a process that clearly allows the lowest level of intervention possible to deal with the issues immediately.
Does the management seem open to that idea of a resident committee of some kind?
They do.
Okay, so they might be getting that going soon?
The request in the letter was that the resident would be effectively conferring to the resident committee authorities, which I'm not prepared to recommend. It is the city's mobile home park. The city needs to retain its control over that park. But the perspective of the residents is crucial and critical to the operations of that center. We've already talked internally with Parks and Recreation about starting recreational programs, which we hadn't done in the past, at least not since I've been here, because I think it is important when we have senior programs, we have locations that we offer them here at our senior center, but why not offer some of those programmings at Charter Oaks, because that is our senior community. They're there. Folks are not necessarily as mobile. They can't go to the rec center. They can't come to the senior center to gain access to some of these services. So I do see value in us looking at the Charter Oaks facility holistically and trying to integrate our other services there on site also. But that's a larger, grander plan to try to put together for the mobile home park.
Well, thank you.
Right?
Why is it, well, two things. One is, I think 6 months report back is too long. I would support a 90-day formal report back, and I think that Councilman Weber's suggestion about incorporating this into your updates in our council meetings is probably prudent. As it relates to the establishment of a resident committee, everything you just said talked about this being part of our seniors. Why wouldn't we have our Senior Citizen Commission engaged in this?
I think the issues have been raised now directly to the senior council, and that this is a good venue to talk about and ensure that the processes we put in place are effective. You can send it to the commission, but the question I would have is, what direction are you giving the senior commission? Are they directing staff to act on actions, which I would not recommend? They need to recommend to the council. Do we want to add the delay that it takes from discussion at a senior commission, recommendation being made, and then direction being given to the council? You agendize it and the council act. It's easier for us to take a look at the issue and us as staff say, no, we need to do that. Retaining wall, no, we need to fix it. The pool issue, got to deal with it. Bad customer service, well, I picked up the phone and I called the on-site manager to talk about one instance of customer service that I thought missed the mark, because that's what we need to do. I mean, if we establish this kind of process at the council, commission level, it's just going to add this delay to the whole process when we should be just dealing with issues immediately.
I hear what you're saying. I don't agree. I won't support a resident committee. And that's because when we've looked at what's happened with the Equestrian Commission as it relates to the Equestrian Center, we found that our commissioners are our eyes and ears, like they're supposed to be. And they're engaging. They're bringing things to our attention that otherwise we wouldn't even think about. And I also think there's a piece of empathy that comes from the commissioners when they actually sit there and they listen. And the Senior Citizen Commission specifically has a lot of, I don't know what you'd call it, Dennis, but tenure and life experience that I think is valuable to conveying to the council the things that are important to the community that resides there. So, you know, I hear what you're saying about the resident committee, but I also think with the charters that we have for our commissions, this sounds like a great opportunity for a commission to become engaged. I think it's a great venue for the folks here, like the boarders at the Equestrian Center, to be able to bring their concerns to staff. And frankly, sometimes, like with the Equestrian Commission, they identify things such as issues with trails, for example, being one of them, and they bring it up at the commission meeting, and then staff addresses it. I mean, promptly. So I don't really feel that there's a delay for things that would not rise to our level for approval. In fact, I think there's grander opportunity for the residents and the citizens to actually have that space with a body, an actual body appointed by this council, to be able to hear the residents' concerns and get them addressed and abated more quickly than it might take for us to generate a report to get it to our level. So that's my take on it, but that's where I'm coming from with that.
Can I just clarify?
I think we might be able to have the best of both worlds. So hearing what you say, Ryan, I completely agree that sometimes when commissioners bring something, or there's members of the audience at the commission's meetings, and the commission hears that and then has a discussion and says, hey, that's something we should do, it is true. Staff says, well, we didn't know about that, or we didn't think about that, so let's do it. It doesn't need to come to the council for approval. So I agree with that. I think that's a good idea. The one thing I would say about the resident committee, which might be I think is a good idea as well, is that you have the park management and the residents sitting down in the park and having that dialogue. And I think that sometimes the dialogue at that, I'm going to call it a lower level, not that it's less important, in fact, in a way it's more important, but they're not coming to the people in charge of the city as much. I think the dialogue can be a little less formal, and assuming management is willing to put some work into this and really take things seriously, that dialogue can result in a lot of things being accomplished at that level. If it's something, let's just say, management isn't reaching out enough to the residents when there's a problem. They're just sending a form letter, or they're not doing anything until they give them a warning or whatever, as opposed to picking up the phone or walking over there. The place isn't that big. Walking over there and talking to the resident, then a lot of things might be able to be discussed anyway at a resident level. So I think there's value to both sides, but I'm definitely agree with what you're saying about the senior commission.
I agree that if Haven, as the operator, wishes on their own to establish a resident committee, not legislated or pushed on by the city, I'm all for that. And I think that demonstrates good faith on their behalf as an operator. What I'm opposed to is the city becoming the troubleshooter for operator failure, in which case we have a duty and responsibility to provide the oversight and ultimately the direction for. So I don't want to meddle, like with the equestrian center, for example, where we have border issues. Border issues should be troubleshooted through the operator first. And then once those remedies have, if they haven't found a remedy, then they need to come to us, and we need to act, and we need to fix it. But I just don't want to get in the business, and this is another example, like Equestrian Center, which it's contemporary at this point, where we're having another operator issue. So, my point in that is that I think it's good faith, and I even like the idea, hey, if the Equestrian Center wants to form a resident committee too, I'm all for that, because I think it's good faith on behalf of the operator. I just don't believe that, I think we, the city, should be judicious in where we choose to get involved with formally when it relates to these particular issues, which is why I think the senior commission is a great place for residents to be able to come if they have an issue that hasn't been able to be solved with the operator going through the issues, which is what it sounds like we're hearing here today.
And if I may, I think I understand where you're going, and I can appreciate that the senior commission would be the one that would be working more closely and understanding what's happening day to day and the responses to issues raised by borders, that the council would be receiving regular updates.
Well, they're residents, they're not borders.
I'm sorry, I apologize. It's contemporary for the equestrians. Residents, I apologize.
Has staff at all discussed some of these problems that have been brought up with the management?
We have.
We have.
And while I can provide more information, I think it will just turn into I agree, I don't agree in terms of the issues. And personally, you've known the city manager and city management here that it doesn't matter how large the issue or small the issue is, we get involved where we need to get involved with. And so I think the senior commission, and it sounds like they're up for the task, will receive more regular reviews of what's happening, the concerns and the actions. The residents can speak directly to the commission, and that the council is hearing where are we at in terms of the discussions with the senior commission and the concerns raised by residents. I think you strike the right balance of having the commission really who understands the population to ensure that the issues are addressed, and that if they're not getting addressed, they can recommend to the council some type of action to come directly from the council. So
the commission would need a lot of direction from staff and a lot of input.
Absolutely. The goal would be that we would provide you everything you need, right, and that the residents will be able to directly have input to the commission in terms of concerns about what direction we're heading.
Because I don't see the commission as an investigating body.
No,
and the other part of that is that these people are going to want results. waiting to get together and make for an agendized commission meeting, okay? The commission only meets every other month. Or every third month. So there's a time factor there. I absolutely agree the commission should be involved in this, but let me ask a question, you folks out there. How many people have been there in that 10 years? Good. Okay, all right, I just wanted to use that number. I do remember a time when you had a resident committee there, okay? And you guys were able to resolve a whole lot of those issues. Eventually it got back to the city of, if there was a manager problem or something like that. But I think the commission should be the overseer, but I just don't know how you're going to get this information to it. I believe that we can make a lot more progress in getting some of these issues done by somebody forming this committee. You guys talk about it as a residents and get together with the new management company. Chris can talk to them, but if we don't know, this person's yelling, this person's yelling, this person's yelling, if we just wait around, all of us are going to be a little older than we are. So I disagree. Although I agree 100% with everybody up here, I just believe that we need to figure out a faster way to get some results or at least get some information out. Ma'am?
Why can't the residents form a resident committee, have monthly meetings like we used to have, where a representative from the city council would come, the management company come, and the managers, and then was open to all residents where we could voice our concerns. The city council had an ear to what was going on, and if management does not resolve the problem, then the city council should step in.
I could not have said it better myself. The reality is that I was a part of those committee meetings, and I saw many times where it could be brought up, and you're absolutely right. If the ear's here, somebody else is listening here because they don't know that it's going to go. So, but I think there's merit to everything that's been said. I think we owe you, okay, the benefit of resolving some of these issues. Okay? And naturally, if I ask him a question, and it's not what you're saying, he's going to cover his butt. You're going to tell me another story. So, let's get the story out there. We have a beautiful facility. There's things to be done, naturally. I, too, spent a couple hours out there last week. I saw the bricks in place, and they're getting things done. In fact, if you remember, the resident managers mobile home was actually changed a few years back and upgraded because we felt that it needed to be upgraded. We needed to reach out and respect our managers. So the reality is, I think in my world, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 20 weeks, I think we start today and get things started, personally.
I'll nominate the mayor to sit on that committee, the resident committee.
I'll gladly accept it. Okay, is anybody going to give any more direction? Ma'am?
I would like to know what the city's...
Mayor, you may as well just open public comment.
You know what, ma'am? Yeah. Ma'am, could you come up to the mic? Okay, as we told you, we were going to allow you to speak when this hearing, when this item came up, and so we'll start speaking, okay, and have the first person come on up.
Mayor, can I make a comment before we start the comments on that really quick? I'm going to have you speak. Hold on, just one second. Just a moment. My only thought on this about, and I get we've done the resident committee thing in the past, and I want you to do it, and that's great, and I hope we all do. The senior commission, we've talked just about utilization of commissions. We've talked about having the chairs come up here and having them talk about the things that their commissions are doing. To not have the senior commission engaged in this or even have them talking about it, I think is a mistake. And I mean that because this is much bigger than the mobile home park. This gets into accessibility issues. It gets into what we do in planning in that area. I think that there's a lot of things that our senior commission should be apprised of in terms of what's going on with the residents there, and then those recommendations that come back to us when we start looking at things like the housing element and otherwise, when we start talking about what we're going to do. So that's all I'm going to say about it. I'm all for, get it done now and solve these issues for these folks, and I want us to do it in the most expeditious way possible, but I don't want to do it at the expense of the strategic initiatives for the city to be able to ensure that we keep in mind what we're doing when matters come before us. And I think the senior commissions need to be engaged with these people because it is one of the strongholds, just as there is with the senior apartments off of Arrow Highway across from the Mobile. There's a lot of considerations that need to be done on the bigger scale. So that's all I have to say.
No,
all right, ma'am, I'm sorry.
I do agree with you. I do agree with you that we should get the commission involved, but the commission meets an hour every month.
We
every other month.
engage the Equestrian Commission. We engage public safety. If we want to make it happen, we make it happen.
I just had a couple of questions
Yes,
to the city. What is the city's responsibility to protect the residents from the homeless encroachment into the park of senior citizens, and the city's responsibility to the residents because of their federal grant monies that they get because of the quantity of senior housing that they're providing to the residents of the city? I just think those are bullet points that
Chris,
should
you
be
want to
noted.
address that?
Just comments I wanted to make.
I think a lot of issues that pertain to Charter Oaks pertain to the entire city. And so we support senior programs throughout the whole city, not just Charter Oaks. Homelessness is not just an issue in the mobile home park, it's citywide. So I'm trying, I don't know if there's a specific area that they're asking of, I don't understand. We've already discussed with the sheriff's office that they used to patrol. There was a perception that they used to patrol far more frequently than they do now, and I've asked our captain to ensure that we're doing regular patrols through Charter Oaks. But if the question is, are we going to solve homelessness, and that's not, I don't know how to answer that one.
All right, ma'am, you want to, just, I don't want to get back and forth, but just let's make sure everybody's comfortable understanding what.
It isn't providing for the homelessness. It is you have vulnerable senior citizens in a darkly lit community, and they're cutting through the fence between the railroad and us, and they're breaking into homes. I think that's, the city's responsibility.
Are these homeless
not the
people?
mobile home park's responsibility or the management company's responsibility. That was just my question.
Are these homeless people?
Yes, homeless people are cutting through the chain link fencing between the railroad tracks and the homes. And and what's being done is just chains and padlocks and, it's a dark community in a lonely little area, and the people are just coming. They come in the middle of the night. They're breaking into seniors. Seniors can't hear that well. They can't see that well. They can't respond. What are they supposed to do? Their property's being pilfered, and their people that have RVs and vehicles stored are getting broken into.
At this time,
And I don't think that I don't think that's the management company's responsibility.
So I think I understand the question better. The city's obligation is a general duty to the entire community for public safety.
Correct, because as my understanding is that the city receives federal grant money according to how much senior housing they provide. If I'm incorrect, I apologize, but that's my understanding. I just thought those were points that should be brought up.
So I think to answer the question asked, we have a general duty for public safety throughout the community. There's a separate issue that's being raised about the fence, which is something both the management company and I have already identified as something that we want to address. But that's a capital improvement program consideration that we have to consider. And so, there's a list of things that I saw when I went there. I said, I want this, and all these things done, and I could rack up probably $5 to $6 million worth of improvements that I think we should just go do. But it just doesn't mean you're going to go do those $5 or $6 million of improvement. I think what we need to fully understand are what are the needs of the park, which we've already authorized Haven Management to perform a facility assessment, both above ground and below ground, to understand what are all the needs of the park and how do you schedule and program them. Safety and security is a primary concern. Reliability of infrastructure is a primary concern. I think what follows both state and federal direction, that where we have lack of broadband, we need to make efforts to improve that access to areas that don't have that access, and Charter Oaks is one of those areas that does not have access to adequate broadband. I mean, those are all considerations. And so when we're being asked questions, I would love to do all of them, and I'll just do them all now. We just can't do everything now. We have to be smart about how we plan them. And the residents need to be engaged along the lines of whether it's a resident committee, engagement with the commission, direct engagement with management, with city oversight. I see that involve, you don't just cut out the residents of the process in terms of what we're looking on doing. So when we do a 5-year capital improvement program, what we should have is residents, this is what we're planning for the next 5 years in terms of capital improvement. Gain input from residents about concerns and rationales for doing something different, evaluate that internally, management with the city, and then come up with the final program and the schedule that we're going to perform that program. So then you get both the external and internal input in terms of those decisions. And if the back fence, which in my opinion probably should be more of a cinder block wall.
Chris, build the wall, buddy. That's it. Build the wall.
The last estimate on that wall is $440,000.
Build the wall.
Yeah.
What is a senior's life for?
You're absolutely right, ma'am. But right now, we've got to identify these things and see if we can get these things squared away.
Can I ask one question, Chris?
Nobody here is not listening.
So I guess one thing that I think would be important to kind of flesh out is we're assuming going forward that we're going to get cooperation from the management, but I think there's a general consensus from the residents that are here that that may not be so fruitful. Assuming that the management company doesn't live up to their responsiveness and our expectations of them as a city, when is it that we would get to a point of terminating an agreement with them? Or contractually speaking, when could something like that occur?
Well, it's no different than any of the other contracts we have that have termination provisions. Both Haven and the city can notify each other of termination and terminate it with a short term, with a notice. So it goes both ways. And so, but I have to caution, this is not the first and not the last issue or area or contract that people will have concerns about and demanding a certain action, that without proper knowledge of the systemic impacts and views of what's happening, understand what are the secondary effects. It's easy for me to say, just kick Haven out. That's great, let's kick them out, that's fine. Just like Basir came to us and said, we're out in 30 days. But what happens when you get to day 31, 32, and there isn't a management operator? The presumption may be to residents that, well, city staff can just do it. No, they can't. City staff in the past haven't properly managed Basir. So where do we think that we're just going to step in 30 days and take over a park and not have an issue with how we manage a park? And I think, secondly, to a company like Haven, they're an extension of staff. They're your contractors. Somebody comes and complains about a staff person, I don't turn around and fire them. We first have to evaluate what's happening, remediate, give opportunities to improve, and allow them to rise up to what we expect of a staff person. And I think you owe the same courtesy to a management company that's only been here for 3 or 4 months to be able to do that.
I think another point that I think is prudent and along the lines of what you're just saying is that if we're talking holistically in a broad range of issues that we're experiencing at the park, and we up and remove the operator, I think in general that's going to serve an opposite effect and probably push off many of these issues and prevent them from being solved for a longer period of time. Because without an operator there to actually perform these things, we can identify the problems all we want, but fixing them then becomes hard because we don't have an operator to do it. So
I think the issue is the agreement the city had before with Basir was minimal. We've been working on revising the agreement and proposing accountability measures. Our hope was to have a housing manager that would take that to fruition, but since we don't have one yet, we're not quite there yet. But the goal is to really establish what the processes are when things are not working, or what are the processes we expect, like when a resident's concerned, what do we expect of the resident, and what do we expect of management, and how do they respond to that? That should be articulated so that a resident knows exactly what the process is, and if they're not happy with the responses they're getting, there's a chain that they go through to be able to get redress. We've asked Haven to utilize My San Dimas, and they're being trained on that, I believe, this or next week. My San Dimas, just like all the other service requests we have in the city, are requests that actual city staff, management, and myself can see and see how they're being handled through the process. So if I report something like a broken XYZ, we can see that request has come in, we can see the responses that Haven's providing, and we can intervene when we're seeing, hey, this is taking too long. What's going on? We need more information. You haven't told the resident enough to understand why this is not getting remediated right now. And if it then is more serious, then engaging them directly, the management company, and figuring out what's the breakdown here. That's, I think, a more effective process to get to a solution than waiting for a breakdown and then letting city council say, here's the issue, city council, go deal with it on any issue that may come up.
I really appreciate that it sounds like they're interested in using the My San Dimas app, because I think that does provide us some oversight, certainly, and it's a good thing, but also very technologically based, and just for accessibility purposes and for community clarity. And we've talked about this in past meetings, but probably not with the same residents that'll be hopefully accessing My San Dimas in the future. But nothing has changed. If you still have an issue, the city staff has been very clear that you can come to City Hall, you can pick up a phone, and the city staff will utilize My San Dimas through your phone call to enter the problem in so it can be tracked. So if technology is not your thing, it's still accessible through the traditional means.
That's absolutely correct. We understand that there are populations that either don't use computers, find it challenging, or have impairments to be able to do so. And so a phone call, an email, or even a visit should trigger a city staff person putting that entry into the system. I should also note that Haven Management has both Mr. John and Katie Davis that are in the audience, so they're in attendance. I don't want the council to feel that they didn't show up or are not here and available to answer any questions.
Great. Ma'am?
Yeah, I had a statement to make. I personally was a property manager for Section 8 housing, and I worked with G&K Management for many years, and actually rented up the Section 8 housing right there on Euclid, I think it was, when it was open in the 80s. And my take on this whole management and company and the on-site managers is that in the short term, because these managers have angered and made the residents so irate with their rudeness and their inability to speak to people in an empathetic way, is that maybe in the short term we can just ask Haven Management to replace the managers so that we have a better relationship with on-site managers than this has turned out to be. Calling the police on a veteran who's hard of hearing and speaks loudly, and then sends the police to his house and says he can't go in just because he has a question on his bill. I mean, this is not the way you treat not only seniors, but just residents. We're homeowners, and we do pay a rent. We pay for services, and that was my other mention that I said last time, is that I think we are entitled to see what these on-site managers are obligated to do. What are their duties in the park? And then we should have, like you're saying, a procedure on how to get redress. If we go into the manager's office and they throw us out and call the cops on you, and the sheriff says you can't go back in there, where are we supposed to go? We're supposed to talk to somebody. So we don't have contact information for Haven Management, like an email or a person that we can contact. So we have to go through the managers, and they have managed to not manage the building, but they've managed to anger everybody in the park. Most of the people in the park don't want to have anything to do with them. So if Haven Management can replace those people, it might buy them some more time to show us that they are a good management company. And that's just coming from personally a property manager history that I have. Thanks.
Great. I believe that 4 months is as long as they've been with us, Chris?
Since the beginning of October.
Okay. During that period of time, Chris, do we know if the leadership of Haven Management has gotten together with the homeowners and entertained these things, or is this all just back and forth emails and conversations and stuff like that?
No contact from
Okay. Well, I'll tell you, I'm personally a believer of contact, that there should be, if I got to say something wrong about somebody, I think the management company needs to put together some type of a town hall meeting, so they're hearing these things, because they're only listening to their managers, and I understand that. But if you guys are just sitting there, you're looking at them in the eyes, saying, hey, we want to work with you, we want to get our problems solved and want to move forward, okay? Versus this adversarial thing that's going on. When I was out there, there was some people would tell me what's going on. Some people would tell me, said, oh, I don't see a problem. But, the reality is more and more people are starting to come out. So there is some kind of problem that I think can be resolved by mere conversation and taking care of it. I don't think the city's not taking this lightly. I've heard about this every day since the first time you guys come here. There's been conversation back and forth with Chris and other staff members. Like I said, I went out there. John's been out there. John, I know that he met with a few of you folks. And so we're not taking it lightly. So now you just got to get ourselves on a horse and start going forward again. So
I think people don't want to speak up.
I think we all understand that, because everybody's worried. We even have that problem at the horse stables, that people are worried that they're going to pack their stuff up on their horse and have to leave. So we want to get this resolved, okay? And I don't know. I personally thought the process went very well when we had a community group that spoke with the managers on a regular basis.
Who's going to set up the committee? The staff? Our staff going to set up the committee?
Well, I think I'm getting mixed messages, and so do we want to let Haven work with the residents to determine whether they form a committee?
Folks, please let the staff members and the city council go ahead and talk about this. We know you're frustrating, but there's got to be a starting point, and that starting point might be what the city manager is going to suggest.
Could we maybe, Mayor, I would just suggest close the public comment period to hear the speakers and then move forward so we can get everything into consideration?
It might be a good idea to hear the speakers and compile whatever questions and suggestions there are, and then discuss those as a bucket.
Yeah.
Okay. I agree. Sir?
Oh, hi. Thank you, Mayor, for your time and letting me come here and speak, and all of you, thank you. I live at 801 West Covina Boulevard, with most of these elderly people. I live there because my mother lives in one of the houses. She has a serious heart condition and stage 5 colon cancer. I've already lost my father, so I don't want to get that phone call again, because we've already been through that like most of us already have. So I'm there because my mom needs help. I've been there off and on for 10 years, and 10 years, I have been telling my mom to put the house up for sale and get the hell out of there. It's unsafe. It's unsafe for these elderly people. They're in bed, in all due respect. They're in bed by 9:30 at night. I'm up late. I'm the one who catches the people in the back every night. I'm the one who calls the police. I do want to say one thing. I do appreciate Miss Garcia, because I do come here and I do voice my concern to her, and she is professional enough and patient enough to listen to me and to allow me to vent. The management here, they need to go, buddy. I don't say that to be rude or disrespectful, but I'm 54 tomorrow. I know what respect is. They don't have no respect. They could care less. Victor told me, I don't work for the city. I work for the employer who hired me. That should tell you guys to vote them out ASAP. I have seen homeless. I'm the one, ma'am, who caught the people in the back cutting the fence. I'm the one who caught them. I'm the one who busted them. I'm the one who told the park. Their first question back to me was, did they steal anything or did you call the police? That shouldn't be said to me. You should voice a concern for the residents that live in the park who are seniors. There are plenty of people living there now that are underage. They don't belong in the park. The first rule, I believe, is to put a gate that takes all the foot traffic from walking into the park to go allowed to use an unlocked front door now, because they don't want to lock the front door. So anybody can walk into the clubhouse and go use the restroom. I told Ms. Garcia a couple of weeks ago, I caught a homeless guy outside of the clubhouse by a light who physically changed. When I told Victor, they're like, well, that's okay. He needed a little bit of light. You know, to me, that's like a slap in the face. They don't care about the residents. They only care that they have a job that's on Easy Street. And there's nothing easy about the residents and protecting the ones that deserve to be protected. They're seniors. We all have seniors in our life.
Thank you, sir. Your time has elapsed, but thank you for your observations.
My name is Matilda Genovese. I'm a resident of Chartered Oak. I want to reiterate, the problem is the on-site managers. You want to solve this problem, ask Haven Management to replace them. They are rude. They are arrogant. They are callous. They don't give a damn about anything except having an easy job. You cannot fix that. They are not millennials out of college that you can train. These people are in their 50s. This is their work ethic. You cannot train them to do anything other than what they do. And the fact that Haven Management brags that they're wonderful and they have 20 years experience leads me to question, what does Haven Management think is a good employee? And they need to seek counsel, Haven Management, because there's a legal theory of negligent hiring. And if these managers cause damage to any of the seniors here because they can't be bothered doing their job, Haven Management is liable, and they will sue. On the wall, in the last 6 months, 2 people have been killed on the railroad track. High school students are coming through the park, crossing the track to get to the shopping centers. We need a wall. You make $1.3 million a year profit on Charter Oak last year. You have $440,000 to build a wall. At what cost? How many people have to be killed before you see the value in the wall? On the roads, they sell asphalt Tar, we have a full-time manager. We have a full-time maintenance manager. You're telling me they can't buy that repair asphalt and go there and lay it down and cover up the holes? Can anyone think out of the box? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Go ahead, sir.
Hi again, real quick. Now, you say that, you had to get a management company, and you say you can't put someone in there. You tell me the city can't put someone in there short time until you find suitable people. I don't understand that, but now basically I'm here to say now you got a sheriff sitting over there. You get to say that if I have a problem, I can go up to the manager's office and give my problem and not have to call the management company? What's the difference? They're the same people. Exactly. The same people. I mean, you say you took a recommendation? You didn't check them out to see if they were capable? You take someone else saying, well, they got 20 years experience, or whatever experience they got. So this guy said they were good, or this lady said they were good. You don't check them out to make sure if they're capable? I got paperwork right here, guy, about mine, and from the owner of the management company who can't do basic math. Now, come on. If that's the kind of people you want, you come live in the management, you come live there, and we'll live in your house. You live where we live.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Evelyn Amstone. I live at 801 West Covina Boulevard. The math problem that Mr. Larson is talking about, I have the same problem on my bill. I had a $29 credit and a $2 debit, and they converted it to a $27 debit. Now, anybody in this room should be able to figure out a $29 credit deducting a $2 debit equals a $27 credit, not a debit. So, and the credit that they're talking about was reflected in our December bill. And we're in February, and they still haven't figured out how to fix it. I got a letter from Dee today telling me and showing me how they figured out the problem, and they converted a credit to a debit. That's basic math. These managers are incompetent. They're rude, they're disrespectful. I've gone in there and talked to them about my bill. I've been told, you need to leave the office, we don't like your attitude. My mother's 92 years old and she's lived in that park for 23 years. She was an accountant and she knows how to do math. And believe me, if she has a problem on her bill, she's going to go in that office and she's going to want an explanation. Do I have to worry that my mother's going to have the cops called on her? This is a serious issue with these managers. In Chris's report, there's a lot of things. I worked in that office for 10 years, and I can tell you a lot of the stuff in here, and no accusation, Chris, on you because you're new, but a lot of this is false. The dates and the timelines are false. That retaining wall issue is behind my house. I reported it in 2016. I reported it to the on-site manager, who is Pamela Thomas. She reported it to Bashir and Kassenheiser. Nothing was done. I called City Hall. I left messages at Ann Garcia's office. Nothing was done. And now we're in 2022 and you're finally getting around to fixing that retaining wall. Well, and during that time period, I was dealing with a sick husband who was on hospice. I should not have had to stay on the phone and keep calling and calling and calling. When we seniors bring an issue forward, we want a response. I hear a lot of talk about getting back to the committees and getting back to the senior council and getting back to the city council. Who's getting back to us? We get no feedback. And we have a right to be angry. My mother has lived there for 23 years, and if you average out that she has paid $650 a month, that's $179,000 that she has paid in rent. And now she's living in a place that used to be a nice mobile home park and is very quickly becoming a trailer park. And it's not acceptable. This on-site management team needs to go. Somewhere you need to find a couple that knows how to deal with seniors and knows how to get the job done.
Thank you, ma'am.
I have to tell you a story. It's not a story, it's true. No, they don't know it. It's the person tell me that. On the December 22nd, her daughter was killed by the train track. And this lady, she already have cancer. And she says she refused to do chemo, to do anything, because her 39-year-old daughter was killed by the train. You tell me how you feel if you have your kids doing this. We can put the word right there in that minute to pretend these things happen again for all of us. This is a sad story. It shouldn't be happened in the United States of America. This is a country that is always protect the citizen, especially the senior. And talking about this new management, when they come in the first bill, everybody, I'm sure everybody will stand up and say, all the electric bill, water bill, gas bill is all raised up. Why? Everything, every month, everybody, I talk because I walk. I like to walk, I like to talk to people. I want to understand it. Everybody say, why is the bill higher, higher, higher? And you know what? These people, they work hard. Some, they work every day, 24 hours. Some citizens, they depend on the Social Security. And they try, you have to find out what is the reason why they add up all this bill. Because we don't know. When all I heard is that they want to find out. They said, you go ahead and figure out yourself. What? How can you do that? What is the responsibility? Right there, we all know this management and this company, it shouldn't be out in here already. And maybe you can find out there's something behind the fishy stuff they were doing. They were thinking senior, they don't know nothing. No, this is not right. We should be respect each other. And we should take our responsibility. And I know that all of you out there, you got to have, I know that you have wisdom and you have understanding, and I know you have a good heart. You want to help people. So I'm asking you, go ahead and look at the truth. Help us, these people. Sure, what is going on with this community? What is going on with this community? The wall has to be built to stop people to get killed, to stop people to come in, to steal, to give. You know what? All the people behind the railroad track, all the people, they're lady. She say 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, she have to get up. Why? She have to watch all the people in case they come in, because she already steal by some people, the truck, all that stuff.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else wishing to address the council? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council for discussion.
got one more.
Oh, sorry, ma'am.
All of us have complaints, and I do too. But I find myself praying, why are our meters all high? Only one person reads the meters. And that's my statement. If one person reads the meters and all of them are higher, why? That one person, I understand, also works for Haven. I'm just saying that I'm looking at the whole picture. I'm a retired teacher. I have to look at problems when I deal with kids and see the core. I'm retired now, like I said. But as I listen to you, that's the one thing I came up with. If all the meters were enlarged, mine was over 100 more. Only one person reads the meters. I see him every month. And I'm not trying to get him in trouble. I'm just making a statement. has got to be my witness. And I hope there's no repercussions from that either. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, anyone else? All right, I'll bring it back to the council for comments.
Well, I like the idea of this committee, and you suggest in the agenda that you work with management company to form it. I think is a good idea. The only thing I could say is that you should report back to us maybe every city council meeting, just what's happening, 5 minutes and not a long discussion or a long report. Just to let us know that we have started a committee and this is what stage it's in. That would be my only thought about it.
Thanks, Dennis. Chris, when will that capital, the 5-year plan be completed, or when are we requiring it to be completed?
We should be just about to start the facilities assessment. We authorized a $7,500 expense to do so. And so we can still do a capital improvement program, but we just won't have the luxury of understanding the underground infrastructure, the capital needs.
No, that's what I mean. When would that facilities assessment be finished? I'm just thinking of a time frame for when we can get some of these things done. We mentioned the wall and other things. And I know you don't want to just jump the gun and say, okay, next meeting I'm bringing an allocation for $400,000, but I'm just asking, when would we get to a point where we could actually analyze that? We're in the middle of the budget process right now, so I hope we're going to get it in time to fold it into all of our budget deliberations.
I don't have a problem recommending $1 million at the next meeting, but that's not the solution. I think the issue we have right now is there are a lot of feelings of what are needed, and a lot of them that I agree with. I think the wall is very important, and that we should be, and we could say right now, just go do it, because everybody that came here is asking for it. But that's not prudent planning on implementing these changes. It's, for all I know, there's some underground utility that comes near that location, and as I tear down the wall to try to, or fence to build a new wall, I come to a dead stop because we hit something we didn't realize was actually in the ground. And so while I understand the passion and the emotion, and I want to address it, I can't necessarily go forth, let's a gung-ho, let's go do it, and then run into a hard stop and then be questioned as to why did you got common sense said you would have figured this out. Well, and so we can do a capital improvement program. We can ask Haven Management to come up with one now that's preliminary, and we could revise it after a facilities assessment, so we could actually look to some items we want to, if we want to fund them immediately, we could fund them immediately. I mean, that is an option we have.
Well, and that's, my question was, when was that facilities assessment going to be finished? So that's my first question. When are we expecting that to be done?
I would ask Haven Management to come forth and give us an estimate as to, after starting that, how long it would take to complete. I don't know the timeline on that.
And you're welcome to come forward and speak if you would like to, but I don't want to. Okay.
Good evening, John Davis with Haven Management Services. Do you need my business address?
No, you're fine. We have it.
I think we got the approval today. We haven't asked the company when they get it done, but I would expect no more than 90 days. And we can push them a little further, but that would come in like late April, I guess, which is later than the budget is due, but not before you've acted on the budget, the capital plan, and so on.
All right, thank you. Because
is there anything you'd like to say just generally, sir, while you're up here about any of this?
Yeah, but I probably shouldn't. No, just, I've been in the business 30 years. I've run parks for 5 different cities. And I've been doing a park in Laverne for 26 years. And, so I think we have a lot of experience in this area. There were a couple things that occurred here that I regret, but one was beyond my control, and that is that, when we met with the existing managers, who now I've heard, there weren't very many good things about them, They told me twice in the month of September that they'd be there 1st of October when we took over. And it's usually easier to take over and then assess and make a change if you feel it necessary. But then on 3 days before we took over, they told me they weren't going to be there. So we brought in a couple that's been with us a long time, has a good record with us, and but for 2 months, first they had still ongoing obligations at the park they were leaving, but also the home at Charter Oak was not really livable. There were broken windows, missing appliances, and other damages. And so once we finished the transition at the park they left and got the home prepared, they finally moved in, so things, started to get a little more orderly. But I am disturbed by many of the things I hear tonight, and they will be addressed with these folks. But I do believe they're capable, and I understand.
Please, thank you.
I would also, just one last thing, in Laverne, for example, I've been meeting with the resident committee there for the 26 years I've been managing the park.
You don't want to hear about Laverne, this is St. Peter.
I've missed I missed 2 meetings back 15 years ago when I had cancer, and I missed several during COVID, but I've met with them every other month, and I'd be glad to do that here in San Dimas as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now,
Mr. Mayor, point of order, it's the council meeting.
Please, ma'am. Thank you. All right.
So just to wrap up my point, if we're going to get a facilities management report, which can lead to a plan for 5 years or whatever it's going to be of things that need to get done, and if we're going to get that in April, which is only a couple months away, we can discuss that as part of the budget. What I am uncomfortable with, because I seem to be hearing this, but I'm not sure if it is that our city management and Haven management will work together about the plan and agree on a plan without council involvement. So I want to see the plan, I think we all do, but then the council should be able to look at that and say, that number one on their list is A, but maybe it could be B, and have that kind of discussion during our budget deliberations.
Can I speak to that?
Sure.
In terms of the capital projects, we could work together with Haven, yes, but council ultimately is going to have to identify and say, yes, we want to fund these because there's an appropriation. When it comes to some other elements of the plan, the internal operations of the park, I do not think it's appropriate for council to opine on it. Like, for example, a resident forum as to how to complain is an aspect of operations that I don't believe the council should be opining on, like, okay, what we think the process should be. That's something you have your city manager figure out. The significant dollar investments, we don't have the authority without council to approve it. And so
that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, I was just I was hearing something different, and I wanted to make sure we weren't.
Budget is what I'm talking about, because we are in budget season. We adopt a budget before the end of June, and so we could determine what kinds of things, based on what we hear, based on what Haven Management comes up with, obviously, Chris, based on what you and Michael and Brad bring to us, but try to determine, with a little bit of council input, how that, just so we can get comfortable with the set of things that are going to get done and like when they're going to get done.
Yeah, if I can have just one caveat to that, there may be certain things that we would want to move on a lot quicker than a capital improvement program. For example, maybe we want to replace the washer dryers. I don't know, all of them. Waiting for the budget to do that, and then the timeline for the supply chain timeline is how long it takes to actually get a washer and dryer these days. You literally, if you wait till the budget, we're probably looking at the end of the summer. And so if I have some poetic license that I can bring something to council sooner, if that's a capital need that management and Haven have agreed we need to do this very quickly,
I couldn't agree more. And
Okay.
what I'm talking about is the wall, the streets, the infrastructure for broadband, those things that are going to cost the kinds of programs that are going to be in that facilities assessment. The broken washer, yeah, that should be replaced. I mean, nobody needs, you don't have to come to the council to get that authority. You saw the broken washer, let's replace it. So, anyway.
I may have oversaw it. The washers and dryers, are they belong to us, or they belong to a private company that, supplies them? When I was there, I saw these rules, and I saw the name and address of the people that should repair them. Do they have them, or are we just subleasing their washers and dryers?
Those appear to be leased dryers, but we could decide to purchase our own. I'm just offering that as an example of,
No, I just wanted to make sure that I understood that they were leased. And
Correct.
so I would think the company that's leasing to us, should be the people we should be addressing this to and saying, they deserve better equipment.
Well, I mean, frankly, that is a problem. I mean, those washers seem to be from some other era, and the management company should have been, with the leasing company, should have been saying, we want better. Now, I'm not saying whose fault that is. I'm just making an observation, and I'm also agreeing with Chris that kind of thing that is not what I was talking about when I was talking about the budget.
right, when we're looking, I think what I'm hearing is if there's a $500,000 investment for a wall, $700,000 investment for the community center that's there, those are things that the council is going to have to grapple with in the timeline. So when we present that in the budget and say we need $1.2 million for these improvements, here's the estimated timeline we believe we will do those improvements, the council can say, we really think the second project should be first. And I think you need to get moving on that immediately. Yes, that's what the council will have that opportunity. I just wanted to make sure that we don't legislate and have to discuss washing machines. I mean, that's what you hired me for. We'll make darn sure that things that you need to get replaced that are that level, we get your authority on the budget and we just move.
We like to talk about plant material, Chris. We're going to talk about washers at some point.
All I know is I'm looking at 25, 30 people that are in our park, okay? Every one of them have expressed concerns about their safety, the wall, and whatever it is. I would think that should be our primary thought process, is to make sure they feel safe. Probably going to get hung for saying this, but the reality is I think the management company needs to step back, look at the situation, and hire a security guard at night, and just, it's going to cost a little money, I understand, but it's also going to cost, like someone said earlier, what's a senior's life worth? I didn't realize they had all of these problems. I did see the hole in the fence, and we talked about it. That's where we come up with some ballpark numbers. And you know what, a security guard, at night, I don't know, 11 at night to 8 in the morning, I don't know how that would all work out. But I would highly suggest that the management company look towards the safety of the people that they actually have charge of. We're trusting their lives, their safety with a management company, and I know that they came highly recommended, but so far we've had 4 months, and I mean, last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, that's all I heard is things about safety and things like that.
On that point, I just want to thank Captain Ash and Deputy Polanco, because I know Miss White, who lives in the complex, reached out to me with the safety concerns, and I know I emailed Captain Ash, and the very next day, the deputies went out and actually started patrolling early in the morning, around 4 o'clock in the morning or so. So thank you for the responsiveness from your deputies and getting out there, and I hope it continues while we work to figure this out.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, there's certain aspects of safety that Haven is responsible for, but there's others that don't fall to Haven, they fall to us. And I think Councilmember Vienna mentioned that. The law enforcement services, that's our obligation. And while Haven, we could ask them to hire security and whatnot.
At the end of the line, we're hiring the security because we're paying them.
Exactly. And in the end, and then in the ultimate end, every decision we make regarding expenditures on the park over time could translate to an impact on the lease rates too. So we have to balance that. I'll be more than happy to spend as much money as you want, but if it results that in 2 years of rate increases and other impacts to our residents, that has to be weighed, because we're trying to keep a low rate, which is we're on the lower end of mobile home parks, but that doesn't mean we have to short shrift improvements that are happening in the park. We have to balance that, and that's our obligation.
Okay? You're absolutely right, but it's our obligation to make sure they're safe, period.
Correct.
All right, anyone have any further discussion? Anything other than just table this, waiting for the next report?
What I will do to Councilmember Bertone's recommendation and Councilmember Vienna's and Ebner's, place an item on we'll do during my update, city manager's updates, give an update to council as to where we are and where we're going. That way we can ensure that you're getting regular updates on improvements.
Thank you, ma'am. 1 second, please. You're done.
We, the residents, would like to request a meeting at the park. It might have to be done a morning meeting, an afternoon meeting, and an evening meeting where all of the residents can come. It's very difficult for seniors to get out at night. Some of them have vision issues, they can't drive at night. Some of them have health issues, they can't come out at night. But we're not hearing. I mean, I hear everything you say, and I appreciate everything you guys are talking about doing, but we want to hear feedback. So we would like to request in the next 30 days that the city, someone from the council, I don't care who, schedules meetings at the park and bring the seniors in, let them know ahead of time that there's going to be a meeting. We no longer have a chatterbox, so we no longer have a way to communicate this type of information around. But we would like to have a meeting, and we'd like to get feedback from the city. We don't want to sit and wait, and it's very difficult for us to continue to come out every 2 weeks. We're older people. We don't want to fight. We've fought our battles in life. What we want is to live in a safe environment, to be respected, to be treated fairly, and to be listened to, and then to get feedback on our concerns. Thank you.
What happened to the chatterbox?
They don't want to do it. Haven doesn't want to do it.
Okay, thank you. All right, you got everything?
Yes, we'll work with management.
Everybody okay with that? Okay. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Call back to order the San Dimas City Council meeting. And we'll move on to other business. Downtown specific plan update.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. It's great to see everyone this evening. It's been a few months since we provided and we discussed the downtown specific plan. So as staff promised, we will be providing some key milestone updates throughout this downtown specific process. As a recap from our last meeting with you regarding the downtown specific plan on October 12th, 2021, the City Council had a study session meeting and with city staff and the Downtown Specific Plan project team consultant, gave a brief presentation about the Downtown Specific Plan process and outreach efforts, including the formation of a technical advisory committee and a community advisory committee, as well as community workshops. The proposed Downtown Specific Plan project area map was introduced, and at the request of City Council, the boundaries were modified to take advantage of additional housing opportunity sites. Since then, the past few months, staff and the consultant team, InterWest, have been working diligently on the Downtown Specific Plan process. Between September to November 2021, city staff worked closely with the project team consultants to gather data on the city's existing infrastructure, land use, and zoning information, and existing historic resources. Project branding and other materials to be used throughout the duration of the Downtown Specific Plan project were discussed, and a logo design was selected. You can see one of the logo designs here featured on our Project Mind Mixer website. During the months of November and December 2021, city staff made outreach efforts to form the Technical Advisory Committee and the Community Advisory Committee. The Technical Advisory Committee is comprised of city staff from various departments and divisions, project team consultants, and a representative each from the Bonita Unified School District, Metro, Golden State Water Company, Active San Gabriel Valley, and Foothill Transit. On December 9th, 2021, a kickoff meeting with the Technical Advisory Committee was conducted virtually via Zoom. The Technical Advisory Committee members shared ideas and efforts by their respective organizations on study reports currently underway. The information gathered from these various studies, in addition to the background analysis being conducted by the Downtown Specific Plan project team, consultants will help the city in determining where improvements can be made to create a more effective, equitable, and sustainable downtown specific plan. There will be 2 additional Technical Advisory Committee meetings throughout the duration of the Downtown Specific Plan project. On January 26th, 2022, just a few weeks ago, a virtual kickoff meeting was held with members of the Community Advisory Group, the Downtown Specific Plan Consultant Team InterWest, their sub-consultants, and city staff. The Community Advisory Committee is comprised of residents, local business owners, an architect who's also a resident, and representatives from the Chamber of Commerce, Downtown San Dimas Bonita Corridor, San Dimas Senior Citizens Club, and the Sheriff's Department. During the Community Advisory Committee kickoff meeting, the project team consultants emphasized the role of the Community Advisory Committee, provided an overview of the Downtown Specific Plan project, and provided a quick guide to the Mind Mixer project website. The Mind Mixer website, which you can actually see on the screen, is an interactive website that will allow community members to comment and provide input through interactive means. It will also serve as a unique online forum to stimulate discussion and elicit feedback through interactive polls and map and surveys. Before I continue with my update, I would also like to introduce Nick Pergakis, the project manager from Inner West. He will be showing the council a brief sort of oral view of the Mind Mixer site. And here he is.
Thank you, Ann. Good evening, Mayor Bader and council members. My name is Nick Pergakis, the project manager with Inner West Consulting Group, leading the Downtown Specific Plan project. The My Mixer site that Ann had mentioned is accessed at Dimas downtownplan.mymixer.com, and there will be a link from the city's project webpage to this, so it'll be easy to access for residents and interested stakeholders. The site is pretty easy to use. It has 4 tabs that people can access up here. There's a home button and a home screen that we're at here, just showing you an overview of the project and gives you a code of conduct, so how people can come on the site and what's expected as you participate. As Ann had mentioned, there's a community survey that we have here that people can answer some questions related to the specific plan. And this will help generate more input during the planning process, other than just coming out to community meetings or participating community workshops. This can be done at people's leisure during the process, providing input on the plan and questions that we have during the process. So these survey questions here are the ones that we pose to the Community Advisory Committee. And starting tomorrow, we'll have the survey up for residents to be able to take on the site. But this is showing you some of the survey questions that we have, and people can go through. We have like 5 or 6 questions, just basic questions about where they live, what do they want to see in the downtown area, what are things that they consider most essential to improving the downtown San Dimas area, and have these questions that people can take, and then they submit their responses, and then we can calculate and understand what people are asking for and what they see as being important in the specific plan area. We also have open idea submissions that people can just write in some thoughts or ideas that they have, and we prompted the Community Advisory Committee with 3 questions, and these will be the similar questions that we have for the public as well. So what is your favorite thing about downtown San Dimas? And you can go ahead and write in, what your idea is to, about your favorite thing, whether it's a restaurant or a park or a specific building or place. And then you can tell a little bit more about your thought, and then you can add a photo showing, what you are talking about to provide to the consultant team and the city staff. So we have a couple more questions here. And then as we were talking about before, you can launch this map that you can go onto the site and see the specific plan area. There it is, and you can zoom in. And then you can add a comment or an idea of something that you're thinking about. So let's say, you really want to see bike lanes on Benita Avenue, for example. You can write in, my idea is to add in, a bike lane, and then you can provide more details about your comment or idea, saying, I'd like to be able to safely travel along, Benita Avenue on my bike. And then you can submit that. And so we'll see all these ideas coming up on this map. So it'll be really great as we're preparing the plan and developing the policies and the recommendations for mobility and urban design and other aspects of the plan. We can see these ideas come up on the screen and collect these throughout the process. There's an activity page here as well, and then this is some of the activity that we've been seeing from our Community Advisory Committee members. Some have written in and shared some thoughts about the specific plan area and their vision for the downtown. So it's been really great seeing some of these ideas being posed to city staff and the consultant team. And then we have an about page that talks about the specific plan, just briefly discusses what it is and what we're trying to accomplish over the next year and a half that we're preparing a plan. And then we also put a video up here from Chris Constantine, the city manager, just discussing the specific plan and what
we're going to be doing, and he's welcoming people to the site and trying to get people involved in community outreach and the process. And so we also have some further reading here too, with a link to the Project Cities page on the project, and then we have more resources like a downtown specific plan fact sheet that people can download. I'll just also mention that if people are wanting to learn more about how to use the site, they feel like they have some questions, they can go to the frequently asked questions page and learn more about the forum. If they need help, they can click on the need help link, and then they can also see who at the city is listening. So this is showing city staff involved with the project as well as myself. So it just shows that we are monitoring people's comments and people's thoughts throughout the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick, for that overview of the Mind Mixer site. The council has any additional questions regarding that site, he will be here to answer and address any questions. To further elaborate, there will be a total of 4 community advisory committee meetings will be held throughout the entire downtown specific plan process. So we did meet with the community advisory committee once just a few weeks ago, so we anticipate an additional meeting come spring, as well as throughout the rest of the year. In addition to the technical advisory committee and community advisory committee meetings, there will be 5 public community workshops meetings, which will be held at various stages of the planning process to introduce the project, envision a future, consider plan land uses, and study the transportation network. So the first community workshop that we have scheduled is actually for Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022, and will be conducted virtually via Zoom. The goals of the first workshop will be to provide an overview of the existing conditions and begin the public engagement process to elicit goals and objectives and start developing a vision and preliminary ideas and concepts for the downtown specific plan.
Are the workshops open to the public?
Yes. So outreach efforts to inform the public about the meeting is actually currently underway. So we will be notifying property owners within a 500-foot radius of the downtown boundaries. They will actually receive a public notice, a community workshop meeting postcard. We will be mailing that out during this week, as well as properties up to Gladstone Street. So there won't be a citywide mailer, but there will be information about the meeting, again, conducted entirely via Zoom for the public. And in the city right now, we're currently working on our city webpage. So by the end of the week, we should have that live. The Mind Mixer website, however, will be live to the public beginning tomorrow. Right now, it's been available for just the Community Advisory Committee for the past week and a half. And we've seen some engagement. We've had community advisor members speak and add questions, and they've even directed questions to me via email as well, and as well to our consultant team. So information about the community workshop, as I mentioned, will be provided on the city's downtown specific plan webpage. Hopefully should be going live by the end of the week. The Frontier Spring newsletter, we did have information regarding the downtown specific plan planned in advance. So the Frontier newsletter should be coming out this weekend as well, and the city's social media platforms. So we will be working with other city staff, and we're really trying to get the word out about the first community workshop meeting, especially since it is going to be conducted entirely via Zoom. It will make it more accessible to residents at their leisure. It will be an evening meeting, and so we'll post that on the city website soon this week. And again, all of the Mind Mixer website will be live tomorrow. And so once it's live tomorrow, the Community Advisory Committee members can actually share the site and get more members of the public to actually sign up for the website and start participating and taking the surveys and the polls. If there are any questions from staff, this is our update. These are the first major milestones in the downtown specific plan process. As the project moves forward, staff will continue to update the City Council during key milestones. So we're anticipating probably early summer, you'll get another update from me regarding the development of the downtown. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did.
Any questions?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions and comments,
please?
actually. So I'd like to thank staff for the number of notices that are going out in the downtown area. Going up to Gladstone, I think, is a logical place to go to. So it's a large number of houses, I understand, but I think it's worth it. And you mentioned the outreach to, or the trying to get people to know about it. That's always hard, you know, and so I was wondering if on a project of this scale, I wonder if it might, one idea anyway, would be kind of like the Gold Line has those big old signs that are right around the station where they're closing the tracks, the roads and the tracks and stuff. But a big sign like that, like at Bonita and Euclid, there's a vacant property there, or there's public right-of-way we might be able to use. And maybe at the other end, someplace on Bonita around City Hall, or, you know, the little park area by Starbucks or something like that. Because so many people who are interested in downtown might drive by there. So that's just one idea of an expense that might be worthwhile to get people involved. So I want to just throw that out. The other question I had was for the community group, CAC. Do we have resident representatives from throughout the city?
Yes, we do. We have residents even in the Villa Verde area, okay. And we have residents along the Foothill. So we try to actually get a good mixture of residents from the city, but also have participation from residents directly affected in the downtown area.
And is, you know, I don't have the list in front of me of who's on that committee, but is there somebody who lives within the boundaries of that outreach area you're doing, which is kind of the downtown resident area that people are more likely to walk down or whatever?
Yes.
Okay.
And trust me, the community advisory committee meeting that we had, the first kickoff, we had a lot of feedback, and everyone was really willing to share their advice, especially being long-term residents of the city, especially representative from the Senior Citizens Club, sharing her experience, being a resident of over 60 years in San Dimas. Other residents who know and have lived here as well, they were definitely willing to share with us a lot of feedback, issues, concerns, and opportunities that they felt would be very helpful to our project team consultant.
Well, Ann, I love hearing that. That's the kind of committee you want to have. Now, do we have some younger residents on that committee?
So, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Some younger, like 20-somethings, 30-somethings?
So we tried to reach out to the Teen Action Committee. We wanted a representative as a high school student or college student. So I spoke with the staff there, but unfortunately, because of the time commitment of a year and a half and the meetings being in the evenings and so forth, a lot of their school schedules, and they couldn't predict, they weren't able to commit to it. But there were a few students who were interested, but just weren't able to commit to the time.
You know, I just living in that area, that downtown area, I speak to so many people that are, well, younger than me to begin with. That's not saying much, but they're more in their 30s, you know, maybe 20s to 40s. And, you know, whether they're walking by or just see them in the neighborhood. So that demographic, are we capturing that on the CAC? Do we have somebody who's like 25 to 45 in that kind of range?
We definitely under 45, yes.
Okay. All right. But the public meetings are important for people to go to have their say as well.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Any further questions? A public hearing?
No, it's not a public hearing, and we had public comment at the beginning, so we don't need to take
Okay.
public comment.
Anyone like to say something about this? Okay, bring it back. All right. Okay, we'll bring it back to the council for action. Don't know that we need an action.
It's just receive.
Receive and file.
Yes. Any opposition to receive and file? Receive and file. Okay, this discussion, we'll move to the next one. Discussion on consideration to install speed humps on Railroad Avenue. John, is this?
Yes, I'm going to recuse myself from this matter. As you know, I own a house on Railway Street. I've been advised by the city attorney that I should not even answer the questionnaire. So I saw the questionnaire. Do you like them? Do you not like them? I did not answer that questionnaire one way or the other. So I'm going to recuse myself and come back when you're ready.
Don't go far.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Sherry Garwick, Director of Public Works. Before you tonight is a request for your authorization to install speed humps on Railway Street. This is a residential street located between Cataract Avenue and Monte Vista Avenue and south of Bonita Avenue. The City Council adopted a speed hump policy in 2007 to address speeding on local residential streets. Currently, there are 2 streets within the city that have speed humps. One is on Rennell Avenue, north of Arrow Highway, and the other one is on Avenida Loma Vista, near Loma Vista Park. Residents from Railway originally approached staff to install speed humps back in 2018. The city conducted a study of the street and determined that the street did not meet the policy requirements for the average daily traffic, as well as the 85th percentile speed, which was 26 miles per hour at that time. With the recent Gold Line construction activity in the area, there has been a marked increase in the construction traffic, cut-through traffic, and speed of vehicles on that street. With this increase in the traffic, several residents again approached the city requesting the installation of speed humps. The Traffic Safety Committee met and agreed that at this time, due to the increase in traffic, the speed humps could be a potential tool and viable solution to the problems that the residents were experiencing. They agreed to have the residents circulate a petition to determine if the property owners, the majority of 67% or more of the property owners, agreed to the installation of speed humps, which was per the policy requirements. A resident circulated the petition on the street, and in January, they did get more than 67% of the property owners to agree to the installation of the speed humps. In fact, they got 80.9%. Due to the nature of the traffic being from Gold Line, staff met with the Gold Line and asked them to pay for the installation of the speed humps, and they have agreed to do so. So tonight, we're not asking for payment of the speed humps or payment of the installation of the speed humps, just for your approval to install the speed humps. Staff, in accordance with the policy, staff has contacted the sheriff and the fire department, and neither department had objections to installation of the speed humps. With that concludes my presentation, unless you have any other questions.
Thank you. Any questions of Sherry?
Just a general question about speed humps and their installation and their design. I know I live off of Avenida Loma Vista, and I frequently traverse the area that has those speed humps up there. They're posted, and this is just something that I've always kind of wondered, so likely related to this particular issue, but kind of pre-existing. They're posted for 15 miles an hour, while the speed limit is 25. And I've always kind of wondered, engineering-wise, traffic engineering-wise, if the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit is what they were engineered for, or were they engineered for an actual 25-mile-an-hour speed limit? It always was confusing to me that on a 25-mile-an-hour street, we're putting in traffic control devices to slow everybody down to 15.
We recommend the 15, but if you go 25, in most vehicles, you're going to traverse them safely. So that's why we recommend the 15. And the speed limit can be reduced to 15 mile an hour under certain circumstances.
Sherry, several years ago when we did Loma Vista, there are 4 of them on there. The only complaint I heard, the only conflict I heard was when we posted it on signs that one put it too far in the neighbor's yard, and then they put the one right on the corner of their property line, and then the next one was centered on somebody's front yard, but not in the yard, but in front of it. And there was some neighbor versus neighbor stuff there, and eventually I think we moved all 3 to just the property line, okay, prior to the pump. Could we look at that just to make sure that when we go to do that, if we go to do it, that we discuss with at least the residents or right in front where the hump is, and see if there's something that we can make sure they're not uncomfortable with the fact of putting this speed bump sign right in the middle of their view in the front yard. I don't know, just...
We can do that. We can approach the residents.
A while back, we planted some trees. We just put them on their yards, and then we ran away, and then we had to go dig up trees. So, all right. Anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make moved that we approve this.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
They have speed bumps.
Thank you.
All right, can we call John back in, please? I'd tell you what happened, but I know you already heard.
I think
Told him to put a sign right in front of your place. All right, we'll move on to discussing on council budget priorities. I believe, Chris, you're handling this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm projecting the staff report for the budget priorities onto the screen so the public can actually see it when it's televised, and that you can actually see it instead of having to look down onto your budget book. But back in December, we had a PowerPoint presentation that started us on the conversation of establishing budget priorities, and the council, and we continued that in January. And the council provided a listing of priorities, I believe 16 in total, if I counted them correctly, when I grouped them together. And so what I wanted to do in this staff report is to highlight 2 things and ask for an action from the council. First, in the background section, we articulated guiding principles that were approved in our budget policies back in June of 2021. These guiding principles, I've added this bold lead-in that allows us, you kind of conceptually see what's talked about. But these are really a framework that when we're looking at budgetary decisions or proposing items, these are principles we want to try to adhere to when we propose them. Like, for example, balancing priorities. So we have to balance between public safety, infrastructure, and quality of life, which is required to ensure a livable community. And I think council members, at the last time we discussed budget priorities, we talked about we can't just focus on just shoring up just the financial base of the city and neglect many of the other aspects of the community that are important. So we have to balance that. That's a guiding principle. And as we go through, there's a number of other ones. We need a sustainable budget. We need to have a long-term rather than a short-term focus when it comes to capital. We need to be efficient. When we look at compensations of staff, we need to look at something that's reasonable and sustainable for comparable cities that's there in order to minimize turnover and maintain productivity. I mean, these are really broad-based, accepted type of guidelines that the council approved. When we go further down into the discussion and the analysis section, the council identified each council member spoke to a large number of issues. And what we tried to do is first create categories that these fall into. These are sort of along the lines of what you'd see in strategic plans, but they're pretty generic when you look at what they are when you talk about public safety and infrastructure and good government. And underneath those, the numbered items are the council's priorities that were identified. And I've tried to, when there were similarities to priorities that the council identified, I tried to group them so that we didn't end up with this really long laundry list, but could find that, like in the case of community safety, maintaining public safety services and making sure we have effective programs for public safety, i.e. some specifics that were presented by the council, city prosecutor, and looking at county court partnerships, that we can see where it is and how it fits under some type of category. So that when staff start to propose budget items in the current budget or in the future, we can try to tie back to, okay, which priorities does it support? It doesn't necessarily mean there's a priority that it will be connected to, but where we can make a connection to a priority identified by council, that's something we should try to do so we can continue to remind ourselves, these are priorities the council established for this next year. How does this fit into that? And when we have items that are brought up that don't fit the priorities, be able to have the conversation, well, we didn't identify this as a priority, but is it something we actually want to do? Or is it a new priority we need to add to the list? And so what I wanted from the council is to reflect upon these budget priorities and to recommend changes from what you see on the list so that we can solidify these and then utilize them during the course of the budget process. So with that, I will turn it back to the mayor for direction.
Any questions of Chris at this time?
You have 8 priorities here.
8 categories. And
Right,
then
I think you kind of covered everything.
And then 16 individual items underneath those 8 categories. I mean, in certain areas, like under quality of life, the 2 council members spoke to homelessness, but we really didn't define exactly what do we mean by homelessness. Are we eliminating homelessness, address homelessness, reduce the impacts of homelessness? And that's something we can continue to refine, but I just wanted to highlight that was an area that I didn't get clear direction on what to explicitly define, so I just left it as homelessness.
On that specifically, I think we spent some of the Measure H money on our homelessness plan. I would think that looking at ways to impact the strategies came up with there would probably be a good place to start.
Yes, and I think the council's conversation at one of the previous meetings about municipal code text amendment about recycling and putting a stronger regulatory stream about recycling centers that are intended to minimize the impact is a step in addressing some of this as part of a larger step towards an enhanced quality of life.
All right, any further questions? Comments?
Well, I think both the policy principles are all very good. The only one that and I guess all of these it's going to be interesting to see how they translate into an actual budget so that we know, how we're addressing and trying to take care of each one of them. So one that comes to, as far as the policy, is about the program reevaluation. And I agree with it, but it's sometimes there are programs that serve a small number of people, and it could be anything from a particular art class to fly fishing instructions to I don't know what, some small event that doesn't necessarily have the a ton of people in it, but it sure is a welcome thing to have in the city quiver of arrows of programs and stuff. So that's a tough one on how to, because sometimes, yeah, you're tempted to say, well, we're just going to do programs that we get a whole bunch of people participating in, but I don't want to cut nice things to have. So I'm be interested to see how that translates, and I know Scott is working on his part of the budget, the zero-based Parks and Rec budget, and so it'll be interesting to see what's in there, because the proof is in the pudding.
Let me speak to that one, because that's a very good nuanced look at this. So when we say they're guidelines, we're not saying they're absolute rules. And so when you look at a program evaluation, there's a return on investment for resources we commit to an activity. And so if we spent $100,000 on an activity and it served 10 residents, on its face you would think, well, that's not a really good investment. But if you analyze it a little closely and look at the impacts it could have on those 10 individuals, let's say dramatic health impacts that expand the longevity of the life of 10 seniors, we may say, no, that's definitely the kind of program we want to have, even though we know the investment is so high. So even though we talk about program reevaluation, it doesn't mean we're going to evaluate that and say, wow, there's not enough people there, so let's just get rid of it just for the sake of the fact that you're not serving that many. It's just our principle says we should be really looking at that. But when we look at it, if we see that value and know that cost and are okay with that, then yes, we should retain it, not necessarily throw it out. Great. I just want to make sure we don't harp too closely on this and think like, well, you're not in the little box, so therefore you're out. No, I think it's a guidance. It's not an absolute rule.
Yeah, I think this framework is good, and it'll be good to see what comes out of it.
All right. To receive and file?
I'm requesting that council actually approve these as budget priorities, and then we'll utilize it during the budget process.
Okay. Anybody make a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any conversation? All in favor?
I'm in favor, aye. Sorry, I want to make a comment afterwards, I just wanted to.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Done.
There are so along with these, just when I was reading this, what came to mind were a couple things that are also kind of policy discussions. One we've had before about trees and planting trees and all that kind of thing. And I think there's a tree report at some point we're going to get it's got a policy and all that kind of stuff. And we're going to adopt it or amend it or whatever we're going to do. So that kind of policy that's maybe a little too specific for what we were discussing in this particular direction, but it's something that might help us define, well, how valuable is this or that thing. The trees is one thing, but recently another policy that I want to talk about, not right now necessarily unless you want to, but in the future when we're talking about the budget or whenever, is a city Wi-Fi policy. So right now we have city Wi-Fi downtown, but I'd like to adopt a policy at some point. Again, this is some other discussion and other decision, but a policy on Wi-Fi, and it could be anything from we don't want any Wi-Fi because it may be a nuisance. That's one side of the coin. Or the other side is that, well, if it's a public facility, the public building, whether it's the senior center, Charter Oak Mobile Home Park, but it's a building, Marchand's Park's building, the little center there, we should provide Wi-Fi in that building for people who use the building. So anyway, that's just another, but I think there are other things like that. We mentioned equestrians before. It'd be great to kind of hone what our policy is on equestrians, because frankly, we were a horse town, everybody came here because it was rural, all that kind of stuff, but it seems like we're a little adrift on what the actual policy is, and those kinds of things help inform staff about where we really want to head on these various things. So I just bring that up as, I'm not sure, they're not really line items on a budget, but it'd be great to have a policy sometime in the near future, maybe not for this budget year, but budget discussion, but sometime so we can, and I know Chris kind of likes this idea of having things that we know where we're going, and that's what I bring that up. I mean, there could be other things, bikeable streets, I mean, whatever policies we want to do. So just wanted to bring that up and throw it out there.
All right, all in favor? We already did that, did we? Sorry.
Yeah.
I was talking about it as Wi-Fi thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I have to think about that wall before the Wi-Fi. I don't know.
All right, that completes our agenda. We'll move on into oral communications. Members of the audience, speakers are limited to 3 minutes, or as may be determined by the chair. Anyone like to speak to the council? Seeing our most likely speaker shaking his head no, we'll move on. City manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It looks like the state will be considering lifting a state mask mandate approximately February 15th, but no real direction on whether the county of Los Angeles will do the same. So more to come on whether we can stop wearing masks, and it's dependent on the promulgation of the Omicron virus. This Sunday, we're looking at the LA Rams playing the Cincinnati Bengals, and so public health has put guidance out related to COVID and recommendations to keep people safe. They recommend getting an over-the-counter COVID test as close to the start of the game as possible and utilizing that effectively to know whether you're positive or not and making a decision whether to attend or not. Staying away from parties if you are sick, wearing a mask, even inside, when around a number of people, keeping distance while eating, and keeping your hands clean. While these are very obvious when you look at these, I think it's good to remind folks to take safe practices when they're enjoying the game for the Super Bowl. With that, I do not have any other updates.
Thank you. City attorney?
No info tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Members of the council, council members' reports on meetings attended at the expense of the local agency. Seeing none, we'll go to council requests for future items, comments, and updates. John?
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Dennis?
Yes, I'll keep this short and fast. A few weeks ago, I participated in a San Gabriel Valley COG Wildfire Summit seminar on Zoom. And there was a lot of information, but the bottom line, they talked about climate change and how climate change affects the wildfires in two ways. It increases the wind. The winds have increased in force, and drought conditions. And they was saying that along with the pressure of cities to build more housing, in areas that are not natural or should be left natural, in the areas where there should be no housing, and especially in the foothills they talked about. And my only statement is that sometimes there may be pressure on the city to build more housing in the foothills, and I think we should look at this very closely and be very particular. There's some areas that actually you should build it, like we have this study session that we have. This area, we may not agree if there should be equestrian lots or not equestrian, but it's a natural area to build. Whereas in the foothills, maybe you shouldn't be building, and because of wildfire possibilities. That's it.
Thank you. Eric?
Other than just wishing everybody a very safe and I'm not a football guy, so I don't know what, I'm sure half of the people in the city are rooting for the Rams, and the other half probably don't follow football. But, I hope your team wins. I've got a couple of squares in the game, and we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, just be safe and be smart. I think a lot of times the celebrations can lead to drunk driving and things like that. So just be safe. If you're drinking, make sure you get somebody to get you a safe ride home.
Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor. One is I'd like staff to look, one, thank you to staff for consistently and repeatedly establishing the designated area in the lobby to accommodate members of the public who do not wish to be seated in the council chambers. With the restrictions lifting regarding this, perhaps evaluate if staff still feels the necessity for that accommodation. I think that it's been minimally used, and I know that, if at all, and I know staff has taken a lot of time to be able to put that up quite frequently, actually. So I think, thank you for extending that opportunity and accommodation to anyone who would like to attend these meetings. But to that extent, with the restrictions relaxing, perhaps it's time to reevaluate if you feel that's still necessary. If you do, let's keep it. If you feel it otherwise is not necessary any further, then perhaps you can handle that accordingly. The other thing is, I just wanted to thank everybody that is constantly paying attention to what's going on around them. There's a lot of things going on with property crime, the grab and goes, things like that. And it's very important that, if you see something, say something, literally call the sheriff's department, be a good witness, and be able to provide information to assist them in being able to capture the people that are responsible for these acts going on throughout the entire county. I know we've had one or two incidents, I think, that I'm aware of that have occurred here in town, but the bottom line is the more information that you have, your Ring camera footage, if you have it and you happen to have captured something and are willing to share it, the sheriff's department, I think, has a way for you to be able to get a link from a deputy and upload that directly to their evidence system that could greatly assist them in solving some of these crimes. So it is a team effort. We want a safe community. We heard it all tonight, especially from some of the residents at the Charter Oak Mobile Home Estates. And I think we all should be fortunate to live in the community that we're in, but it is a team effort after all. So I hope everybody enjoys Super Bowl, don't drink and drive, and happy Valentine's Day to everyone as we see that in between the time we all get together. Thanks.
Just a couple of things. Last week I was contacted by the mayor of Azusa, and they've started an American flag turn-in. They're tattered or torn. Their program is going to be where you take your tattered, torn flag, they give you a new flag, and then they dispose of it the proper way. The question came down to how much involvement would we be interested in, or if we would be interested in doing our own. I think we have a lot of people in the community. Maybe we could team up with the historical society as well as the heroes and put together something. If anybody's interested in it, I'd like to be able to look further into it and see if it works for us. But to me, I thought it was a great idea. And
I'd be interested in that, Mayor. I think the Boy Scouts, too, would also be a good group to engage. I know that they help with the disposition of flags, and they might be a good partner in that, too.
Super. We'll take a look at it, and we'll go from there. And the other thing is that a couple of days back, after the wind experience that we've had, I kept getting phone calls from either a commissioner or residents that are using the golf course. I think I brought it up 2 weeks ago at the meeting, but they asked me to drive around and look at our course, Marshall Canyon, other courses around, and all experienced damage. We lost about 6 to 7 trees up there, good-sized trees, but we did not lose one golfer. They cleaned it up. The next morning, they had 200 plus golfers go out with no problem. You go up there, you can see where the things have been pushed off to the sea. Yeah, they'd have left them there in front of me, but they got them off the course. They did not lose a beat as far as that. And that's to say something for our crew up there. So I went up there yesterday, and I wanted to find out what's the mindset of when we think we're going to get building something up there. And I'd like to have staff get back to us if they don't mind, and give us an idea. Is this a 2-year project? And it's already been a year practically. And they're, when I ask about it, they said a lot of the stuff is already at the city. So I'd just like to figure it out, because a lot of folks would like to get moving on it.
We'll provide an update, but my understanding is no, the ball's not in our court.
Pardon me?
But the ball's not in our court. We don't have submissions that they're waiting on.
Yeah, no, they said that everybody's working on it, but that there seems to be some questions on it and stuff. They're trying to figure out if they can increase the size or whatever. I just want to make sure that we're not just sitting back and waiting for them to tell us that we're not doing. We may get a snack bar up there 5 years from now.
Would you like us to just address it really quickly now, or do you want us to?
Yeah, I think it's
Absolutely. I'll check in with folks up there at American Golf. The last I heard is that they're still working on their architectural plans and that they need to submit them to the city, but also to our senior management staff to review those, and also the golf committee to review the plans. So that's the last that I heard.
I think you're right on target.
Yeah, okay.
The way I understood it completely.
Got it.
Okay. All right, anything else, Chris?
Yeah, it will not be a 5-year project. That we want that clubhouse up and running as soon as possible.
We know that it took us 4 to 5 years to build a restroom at Horse Thief Canyon, so I just don't want another building that takes so slow. And even though they're handling the money and they're financing it, we could help them and encourage them to get it done for the community. And that's another thing that our seniors like. So, all right.
I have one more thing, Mayor, may I?
Yes.
I just wanted to share with the community, Mayor Badar and I had the opportunity to attend the mini grant celebration and award ceremony provided by San Dimas Rotary this past week. And the Rotary raised quite an impressive amount of money to be able to give to teachers who applied for mini grants from our local schools, including Holy Name of Mary, in addition to some of our other schools in Bonita Unified School District. It's really cool to see some of the programs. I think Holy Name was robotics program, I think, that teacher was actually going to use that money for. And nevertheless, the Rotarians are a great civic organization here that raise a lot of money for us, and my sincerest thanks to everyone that helped and contributed to that effort. And I don't know, Mayor, you got anything on that?
You know what? Thanks, Ryan, for bringing it up. These mini grants were, 250, 500. One was a little larger, but they went to teachers who really cared. And what I found out, it wasn't just the educational things like the robotic stuff. People are looking for this, but I got to tell you, the kindergarten teacher at Shoal, kind of just impressed me and shocked me when she said she was going to use her $500 to put sand in the sandbox. It's pretty sad that we can't get sand in a sandbox for these kids. And that $500 only was going to give her enough sand to get half the box full. So, but all 7 or 8 of them were very appreciative of the Rotary. And I'll tell you right now, give the Rotary a shot. It's a small group, but they're mighty. And they perform a lot of things good in our community. That's what makes our community good, because all the little social things that are going on, heroes, the Historical Society, all of those types of things, when we walk out these doors, we take for granted. But there are people working those things that also love them. And I want to thank those organizations. And let's figure out how to give them enough sand. Take care. All right, I have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Good night.